the LSAs use a pay-per-lead model. Users can click on your LSA all they want. You're not going to be charged until that user actually contacts you. The next, kind of core tool that we want to discuss for PPC is the use of a branding campaign along with your regular advertising. So ROI, or return on investment, is a huge factor when you're paying for every single click. That is why we care so much about setting up the proper conversion tracking. The next thing that I want to talk about on, what not to do is setting up your LSA and then doing nothing with it.
Welcome, and thank you all for joining us for another Justia webinar. My name is Nina, and I'll be the moderator for today. Now, to kick things off, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our speaker today, Samantha Larrus. Samantha Larrus is a web marketing lead on Justia Amplify team with over 8 years of experience in digital marketing, specifically in the legal field. While she helps Justia clients with both search engine optimization and search engine marketing, Google Ads is her area of expertise. She holds a BA in Creative Arts from San Jose State University, as well as a Google Ads search certification. The presentation that you're about to watch will be approximately 1 hour, and once the presentation is complete, Samantha will be joining us live to take audience questions. If you have any questions that come up during the presentation, please feel free to submit them through the Q&A button in the control panel at the bottom of your screen. Now, without further ado, here is Samantha to discuss Google advertising, PPC and LSAs, differences, do's, and don'ts.
All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Nina, for that introduction. We can go ahead and, dive right into today's topic. We're going to be talking about Google advertising, do's and don'ts for both the pay-per-click ads and also the local services ads. So, just a note, our topic today, we're going to cover some tips for really after you've already set up your ads and things are up and running. You've gone through the various steps, verifications, what have you. We're not going to go in depth on the account or campaign setup today, but I believe Nina can go ahead and share the links with you guys for these past presentations. If you do need a recap on the basics, these past webinars are a great place to start. There's the Google Ads 101 and then the challenges and opportunities related to the legal advertising. Check those out when you have time. If you need a little refresher, it's a great place to start. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and get started. Today, we're going to cover a few different things. Here's just a quick breakdown so you can see what's to come. First, we're going to talk about just the basics. What are PPC ads? What are the LSAs? We will cover how to best utilize both of those platforms. And then finally, what not to do for each of the platforms. So first things first, we have, what is PPC? This should be pretty straightforward. PPC, or pay-per-click. The general meaning, as the name suggests, is that advertisers are paying each time a user clicks on their ads. So I know I have a screenshot here. It's a little bit small. I will zoom in just a second. But what we're looking at here is the Google search results page. And I did a general search for personal injury lawyer on a desktop computer. And you'll see right here is where you get the PPC ad. And I'll zoom in a little bit. You'll see the ad itself. They have a nice image asset showing, site links, the logo asset. So this is how things are going to look on desktop when you're doing a search and looking for the PPC ads. Here, same thing, just looking at things on a mobile device. So I, had to scroll down a little bit. I didn't have enough room in the screenshot to show the full thing, but above that PPC ad are the local services ads. So you have to scroll down below that. You get the PPC ad right above the maps. And this is, basically desktop, mobile, what we're talking about when we're referring to the PPC ads. So of course, moving along, next we have the local services ads or the LSAs. This one, little less obvious than PPC. The LSAs use a pay per lead model. So unlike the PPC ads, users can click on your LSA all they want. You're not going to be charged until that user actually contacts you. And that can be a phone call, a text message, an email message. So it all depends on how you have your ads set up, but they have to take that step to actually contact the firm in order for you to get charged. So now let's do the same thing. Take a look at how those show up on the search results page. This is for just regular desktop search. You'll notice the LSAs are right at the top here. And when we zoom in, you see we have the nice Google Screens designation. You have options to call or message the firm based on the settings that they have chosen within their LSA setup. And then looking at mobile, very similar. Again, you have these LSAs at the very top of the page. We have the Google Screens, and then you have the message and call option. Here in this example, only 2 firms have the message option enabled, and that's just within their own settings. So you can choose to set that up however you want. In this case, 2 out of the 3 have the message. Everybody gets the call, so that's how that shows up. So now that we have a thorough understanding of how these ads work, how they look on the search results page, let's do a little bit deeper dive. And this is where we're really going to get into it and explore how you can best utilize each of these different types of ads. So we will go ahead and start with pay-per-click. Now, what I have here obviously is not a non-exhaustive list of all recommendations for PPC. With our experience working with law firms and their paid search marketing, there definitely are some recurring themes that come up, more often than others. So that was, what I wanted to focus on here. Especially, we are often in a situation where we're taking over an ads account for a firm and we get a little, behind the scenes view at what firms are doing with their ads prior to bringing them to us. And I'll just say there's usually a lot of room for improvement. So, with that in mind, the first big ticket item for the PPC ads is making sure you have those dedicated landing pages set up. I really cannot stress this enough. You might be wondering what the difference is between your regular website pages and the landing pages. It's really simple. Generally, your website pages are built with SEO or search engine optimization in mind. So you're using those pages to try and rank organically in Google. You need a bunch of content, you need links, you need to build backlink profiles, all that, good SEO related stuff is not applicable when we're talking about landing pages. Those are built specifically for users who are getting to you through paid clicks. So since you're paying for those users to get to you, we want the landing pages to be completely focused on conversions. So conversion is that user actually taking the next step and contacting you. That means you don't need that page to be linked up. It honestly doesn't even need to be indexed with Google. You don't need a lot of content. You want this to be focused on calls to action, compelling reasons why that user should pull the trigger and contact your firm. So I want to look at some examples of good landing pages that we have put together for some of our clients. If you'll see here, there's a few different examples and of just various pages that we have set up. In this case, we did one for this firm's injury ads, a separate landing page for their car accident ads, truck accidents, and then this last one here is for medical malpractice. So if we're looking at kind of the structure of these pages and what you want to make sure that you're including when you're doing this kind of setup, There are some key things that you want to focus on, and obviously this is going to change a little bit depending on what's applicable for your firm, but these are kind of the core items that you want to make sure and try and touch on for these pages. So the first, make sure that you have strong calls to action, and your contact information really front and center, clear for the user to see. They're not going to miss this. Do you offer free consultations? List that there. If you're a criminal firm and you offer help with bail or you're available 24/7, that's the place where you want to promote that kind of information. Next thing down, include strong marketing language that's promoting your business. Have a contact form that's front and center. Make it really easy for that user to contact you when they land on the page. This one is, making sure you have those legal associations promoted, any awards that your firm has received, really just to promote your experience and expertise and really reinforce that with the user is going to make them more likely to contact you. This next one, not applicable for everybody, but generally for personal injury firms, criminal firms, if you could list some kind of case results related to your practice area that you're advertising for. Users like to see the potential for recovery. So, having that up front and center, really prominent on the page is going to make them more likely to contact you. And then the last thing that's in view here, strong H1 header. Make sure that you're including your target practice area, include your geographic location. Make sure those keywords are in there. And again, it's just compelling and going to make people who are maybe not likely to read the whole narrative on your page just understand, what this is about and what your firm is about. We scroll down the page a little bit. This is the same landing page, just scrolling down a little. We want to look at these featured client reviews. This is another really great way to reinforce your experience and positive track record with the potential new client on your page. And last scroll, we get down to the bottom of the landing page. The nice thing to always have, and we do this typically for our clients, is have another contact form available down at the bottom of the page. So, there's one at the top, somebody sees that first, they scroll down, there's another opportunity for them to contact you. And you'll also notice that we include some additional calls to action next to the form, really just to drive home those points why the person should contact your firm. And then last but not least, we always want to look at the mobile view of the landing pages. As most of majority of your ad clicks are probably going to come from mobile devices. So we don't want to ignore, that aspect. The big thing for mobile, the page obviously should mirror the desktop version pretty closely. But the one thing that is a little bit different is we have this prominent call button at the very top of the page. We use this as a sticky header feature. So when somebody's scrolling on the page, that little top bar is always going to stick there. So no matter where they are on the page, they're always one click away from being able to contact you through the ads. So basically, end of the day, make the most of those paid clicks. Use landing pages for your ads. The next, kind of core tool that we want to discuss for PPC, and this one, in my opinion, pretty underutilized, is the use of a branding campaign along with your regular advertising. So, you have your campaigns targeting whatever practice areas you cover, whatever types of cases you're trying to get. In addition to that, you should be doing a branding campaign. And this is where we set up the ads to target your own branded terms, such as either the name of your firm, the names of the attorneys at your firm, stuff like that. So I have an example here. We did a search for a specific attorney's name, and the first thing that pops up on the search results page is the ad from her branding campaign. So this is a very low cost way to gain control over your namespace online and make sure that what's showing at the very top of the search results page is exactly what you want your users to see. In this case, we have the official site front and center. Google is also showing the site link and image assets along with the regular ad text. Again, these are typically very low cost. I'm talking less than $5 a click in most cases. And it allows you to take control over what the user sees first when they're doing these types of searches online. That kind of budget, when you calculate it out, maybe throw $500 a month at it, it's really a drop in the bucket for most firms as far as your advertising spend, but it's really worth setting up. I'm going to segue a little bit. I know right now we're supposed to be talking about recommendations for PPC, but there is a similar feature on the local services ads that was rolled out maybe a few months ago. And I want to bring that up quickly since it is kind of on topic here with the branded searches. Google local services ads, they allow you to target branded terms through this new direct business search. And you can find this section on the profile and budget page of the LSA interface. So this is how it would look on the search results page if you decided to opt in for these LSA direct branded search ads. Basically, you have your LSA at the top of the screen there with the Google screen check mark. This firm in particular also runs a branding campaign doing PPC. So you'll see that the sponsored PPC ad right below that. Again, this is pretty new. I believe Google only made it available to advertisers in the last few months. So something to check out that's now available on your account if you are running LSAs. With that in mind, the kind of downside to this is that Google doesn't really give you any indication of how much you're going to be charged for these branded search needs. So it is a little bit of a toss-up for advertisers. These clips that we're looking at here on the screen are pulled directly from Google's support page. So supposedly you will only be charged for calls from new clients, so no returning clients. And again, it's kind of hard to tell, how this whole process is going to play out, how those charges are going to be determined. It is our recommendation to keep this feature toggled off on the LSAs and only do branding campaigns using PPC since, you have so much more control over the entire process. The pricing is much more transparent and just in general, it seems to be the better way to go for these types of ads. All right, so after that little segue, we're going to get back into the PPC. The next tool that I wanted to talk about are the automated or AI features that are available to advertisers through the Google Ads platform. So, a bit of a double-edged sword because AI obviously presents both positive and negative opportunities. The key here is really making sure that any automated features that you are using within the ads interface makes sense for your firm. Don't just follow recommendations based off of, what Google is saying blindly. We all know that the Google reps definitely have Google's best interests in mind, not necessarily those of your business. So just, be thoughtful, make sure that you're doing things with reason and not just because somebody's telling you to. As far as, some of the features that we find are safe to use, Google's automated bidding strategies are definitely one of them. We utilize these regularly with our own clients and see really great results. Obviously, you can see here there are a bunch of options available to advertisers. The key is really, doing your research and choosing the right bidding strategy for your specific needs. The automated bidding, it takes the work off of your plate to have to manually set a cost per click for each individual target keyword. And it also allows Google's machine learning to optimize your ads for the action that you're looking for. So Usually on our end, when we're doing, campaign setups, we are starting a brand new campaign off with maximized clicks. This is really going to help with building up volume and getting some good data for Google to work with. And then once the campaign's a bit more established, we'll switch them over to maximize conversions. For law firms doing search campaigns, this is probably the bidding strategy you should be using. It is, as the name suggests, making the goal of your campaign to generate conversions or contacts from your ads. And I'll get a little bit deeper into that in a minute as far as the importance of tracking conversions. But that's where most firms should be sitting, is with the maximized conversion bidding strategy. For larger campaigns with a lot of data, I mean, I'm talking at least 20, 30 grand ad spend per month minimum, maximize conversion value can be a good option for you. And it's really just to allow Google's machine learning to further optimize your ads based off of your own firm's data. So they're able to take, that great volume and turn that data into a little bit more specific targeting than what you can get with the level of data if you're using maximize conversions only. All right, so moving along, aside from the automated bidding, another form of automation that you should be taking advantage of, probably already are, it's really, if you're doing search ads, it's the only option that Google has left, but I did want to mention it, is just making sure that you're doing those responsive search ads within your search campaigns. The main takeaway here is that you're able to input a variety of different headlines and descriptions for Google to utilize their machine learning, and they'll choose from the different options that you provide and basically serve the ad that they believe is most likely to get the action that you're looking for. So, for example, we're just talking about using the maximize conversions bidding strategy. If that's what you're doing and you have these responsive search ads set up, Google is going to use their algorithm to serve the, version of the ad that they believe is most likely to convert any given user that is doing a query that would be eligible to trigger your ad. After the responsive search ads, another set of automation tools that you can safely take advantage of can be found in the recommendations tab of the ads dashboard. So you'll see I circled in red here some of these AI essentials that Google has labeled. There are a lot more than just these, so by no means do not go through and blindly accept every single recommendation that has these AI essentials labeled on it. I will go over that in a bit more detail when we talk about what not to do. But these ones in particular, I wanted to highlight because they actually can be really helpful. Having a notice saying that you don't have a business logo asset set up, or you need to set up image assets. These are things that can actually be helpful for your ads, and you want to make sure that you're taking advantage of those. So let's look at a quick example of, how those assets look on the actual search results page. You'll see this ad in particular has both the image and the logo asset showing in the same ad. Just to keep in mind, even if you have these set up within the interface, it's totally up to Google if and when they will show on the search results page. So it's really all about Google's AI and when they believe that the use of these assets are going to help you reach your advertising goals. So that's the real key here. Big takeaway is give Google the tools that can help boost the performance of your ads when that performance, recommendation makes sense for your overall goals and the goals of the firm. All right, so the last core point that I want to cover when it comes to utilizing your PPC ads, make sure that you have the right conversion tracking setup. I have had countless firms come to Justia to run their ad campaigns, and they have no clue, what calls are coming from their ads versus what calls are coming from their website, any directories they have set up, any other marketing channels. It's really easy for things to get confusing when you don't know what contacts are coming from where. So when that's the case, it's also near impossible to determine your return on investment, which is especially important for the ads when you're paying for every single click that's coming through. So ROI, or return on investment, is a huge factor when you're paying for every single click. That is why we care so much about setting up the proper conversion tracking. When this is done correctly, you should be able to pinpoint every single call, text, contact, or message, or even live chats. So if someone initiates a live chat from your landing page that originated from a click from your PPC ads, you should be tracking that. It's even possible, depending on the volume coming through your ads, to be able to pinpoint, the specific search that triggered your ad that led to a conversion. You can really get a great level of data and insight when you have this set up correctly. So, really is an invaluable tool when it comes to fine tuning your ads, learning what is and isn't working, and being able to, kind of pivot accordingly. So a great example of how you can apply this to a real life situation. What we're looking at here is some keyword data from an actual law firm. They practice family law. They were having issues with receiving calls from potential clients looking for help with child support matters. They were not targeting child support cases with their ads. And since we had proper conversion tracking set up, there wasn't any question that the calls were coming from their PPC. They knew that was the source. That's where these calls were coming from. So that's where we had to kind of dive in and figure out what the issue was. So when you look at the search terms report that we're looking at here, you can see that during, this particular time period in question, we found that Google was equating child support lawyer searches with their target keyword of family lawyer. Obviously, this is not an accurate match. As I'm sure you know, if you've run Google ads in any capacity, Google will sometimes take a very loose approach to keyword matching. That's a whole other story. But the bottom line is we were able to use this conversion information to adjust our negative keyword lists and then allow this client to receive more high quality calls more consistently coming from their ads. Without the proper conversion tracking data, this would be so much more difficult to pinpoint. So again, when it comes to the PPC, let's make sure we have those landing pages set up with the proper conversion tracking in place. Utilize the branding campaigns for PPC only. If you're feeling adventurous, you want to try it on the LSA side, more power to you. But from our perspective, PPC is the way to go for the branding campaigns. And then, only use those AI or automated tools that Google provides when it makes sense for your firm. So moving along here, let's take a look at those tips for getting the best results from your local services ads, or the LSAs. Again, this is a non-exhaustive list. There are so many recommendations, but I just want to touch on some of the big ones today. The first is the upkeep of the various verifications that Google requires you to continue these ads running in the first place. There's also the importance of getting verified reviews on your LSAs. And then we also want to talk about just how key it is to actually log in and interact with the LSA interface on a regular basis. So we'll go ahead and start with the verifications. So I know, if you're running LSAs, you know that there's a bunch of hoops that you have to jump through initially when you're doing these ads. You have to do the background check with Evident. You have to submit your personal license information, as well as license information for any other attorneys that you have featured on your ad. But once that's done, your ads are up and running, everything's, going smoothly. It is really important to stay on the lookout for additional steps that Google may require down the line. We know how they love to spring a new rule or procedure on us without any notice. So you can find any alerts related to your account on this business verification page in the LSA dashboard. And this example we're looking at, this is what you want to see. You've got green check marks down the line, Google screens, everything's all set. You're good to go. Now, as you can see here, we have the, dreaded red exclamation mark signaling that something's off. So let's look here. Google will send out email notices when something like this happens. So just, make sure you aren't ignoring those. You want to check your email that you have attached to the LSA account on a regular basis. I know some folks, like some of our clients, have a special like ads alias that they'll use for setting up the different ads accounts. Make sure that you have those emails forwarding to a, personal email or firm address or something that's getting checked regularly, because you don't want to miss these alerts and risk having your ads shut off. So this alert that we're looking at in particular, for the legal vertical, Google required each individual attorney to have updated identity checks through Evident. This account in particular that we're looking at has had the ads up and running for over a year now, and they turned around and, wanted people to do a re-verification. So this isn't the initial steps. This is something that came up down the line, and luckily, you have us paying attention, so we were able to follow up with this client. But it is something that, if you're not paying attention, you don't follow through with the request by the designated date, you have the potential of your LSAs being shut off until you complete whatever process is needed. So bottom line, make sure you're taking a peek at this page every so often. Actually click through each field and check that everything's okay, even if it has the green check mark. Sometimes that's deceiving, and you click on something and there's actually an alert showing up there. So the, lawyer's headshot for your ad, lawyer, business license, all of those kind of checkpoints down here, check each one of them periodically and just make sure that, everything looks good and you stay in the clear. The next important tip that can really help elevate your LSA performance is getting verified reviews through the LSA dashboard. So we all know, your local services ads, they're going to be attached to your Google business profile for whichever office you're advertising for. So they're pulling your existing reviews from your GBP over to the LSA. You'll see those here. So we know that, having good reviews is a positive signal that can help your LSAs show higher up on the search results page. But when you take that a step further and get the verified reviews, that can actually give you an even bigger boost in the LSA results. So the difference between a regular review on your Google business profile and a verified LSA review is that a verified review can come from, it can only come from a user who actually found and hired you from the LSA directly. So next question is, how do we get those verified reviews? So in order for Google to know that the review came from a customer that originated from your LSA, you have to solicit these reviews through the LSA dashboard directly. So this is a screenshot of the reviews page in the LSA dashboard. And I'm looking at the desktop version here. So that's the layout that we're getting. And by default, you're going to see that the received 71 reviews, those are usually the ones that are coming from your Google business profile. And then if you click over to the ask for a review section on the right-hand side, you're going to get this list of all of these LSA clients that contacted you through the ad with that ask for a review button on the right-hand side. You can click that to solicit that user to give you a review directly through the LSA dashboard. And if they follow through and actually give you that review, that's going to be considered an LSA verified review. Now, not to be confused with the review section that's on the business verification page that we were just looking at. You'll see if you click on that section there, you get a little get a review option on the right-hand side of the page. And there's a link there that you can copy and paste this custom LSA review link and share that with customers so they can leave you a review. Since you can copy and paste that and send it to anybody, the reviews generated from this link are just regular LSA reviews. They're not verified. So just like with the Google Business Profile reviews, these do have some value, but they're just not as valuable as the verified reviews that you can get through the review section that we looked at previously. So I did want to take a quick look at how the review section looks on the LSA mobile app. I'm going to get into the importance of the app in just a moment here, but again, soliciting that review directly from the LSA dashboard from someone who originally contacted the firm via your LSA is how you're going to get that verified review. And now for the kind of last important point for how to best utilize those local services ads is actually logging in and interacting with the interface. I know this seems like a no-brainer, but you would be surprised how many firms think they can set these up and then never look at them again. So the first thing you should do if you are running local services ads, download the mobile app for your phone. I know this may be a pain and, you have to monitor things through a personal device and not have that, separation with the business. It is really worth it. If you have to choose between managing your LSAs on the app versus the desktop interface, choose the app whenever possible. Google actually prefers that method of monitoring the ads versus the desktop. So there is a benefit to using the mobile app. It's important to note, though, unfortunately, if you have multiple LSA accounts, for example, maybe you have offices in multiple locations and you set up one LSA for this location, another LSA for the other one, you won't be able to use the LSA app. Google only allows usage for the app for single LSA accounts. So hopefully something they'll change in the future, but for the time being, it's only single LSAs for the app. And the mobile app, it does mirror the desktop interface pretty closely, but I wanted to take a look at some of the most used pages you'll probably be looking at if you are utilizing the app. So first one here, we have the leads page. So this is where, you check all of your incoming calls and messages that are coming from your ads. Then the archived leads, basically, all past calls, stuff that's already been checked, you can go back to your call logs there. And then the third one here is the screen for a specific lead where you want to take action on that particular call or message. So you have the option here, that little 3-dot icon, where you can dispute the call if it's not a qualified lead. Or if you click on the phone icon there, you can call the potential client back directly from the app. And this is especially important if you miss any calls through the LSA. Calling back directly from the app is the only way that you can let Google know that you are paying attention to the calls. You are being responsive to people. You're not, leaving missed calls unanswered and not following up. This signal to Google that you're being responsive and really paying attention is a positive signal when it comes to the LSA performance. So the next thing that we're going to talk about actually ties into that aspect of being responsive really well. Google assigns each LSA account a specific responsiveness score. And so this is going to be based on your last 90 days of LSA data. And Google calculates your score by taking the total number of connected calls from charged leads in your account and dividing that by the total number of calls that you received. So in general, a higher responsiveness score means that you're more likely to have calls coming through your ads on a more consistent basis. It's basically to help with keeping the volume nice and consistent from your ads. So the tricky part with this is that the responsiveness score can only be pulled through the LSA API. So it's not available anywhere in the dashboard that you can, easily get to. We're looking at a snapshot of the API here. And as you can see, the responsiveness score for this particular account is 67%. So if you are like me and that API looks like a bunch of gibberish, it is really helpful to have a provider who can go in, do the dirty work for you, pull that data, and you don't have to worry about messing with, all the code. Our clients who run LSAs with us do get a monthly report, and we clearly outline their responsiveness score for each of the LSA accounts in that report. So you're getting an update monthly, you know where you stand. Bottom line, when it comes to keeping your responsiveness score up, is making sure that you always have somebody answering the phone during the times that your ads are running, making sure that qualified leads are getting noted in the interface. And if you do miss calls, call them back through the app. That's the best thing that you can do to really try and keep this score up. So moving along and kind of looking at, the different actions that you can take on the various leads. This is the page you'll see for an individual call. And the actions that you can take, first would be, input your own personal notes related to that call. You can add the caller's name, contact information, any notes about the call, what they were calling about. Did you schedule a consultation? Are they reaching out to an attorney already? Whatever the case may be, you can add those, notes in the interface there. Another option that you have is this mark booked section in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. So if the call was a qualified lead, or basically eligible for you to be charged for it, you want to mark the call as booked. Even if you don't end up representing this person, you're going to get charged for the lead regardless. So you might as well have this kind of count towards that responsiveness score that we just discussed. And finally, if you click on these little 3-dot icon, same as what we just looked at on mobile, you get the option to dispute the call if the call was not a qualified lead. So disputing, again, it just means that the call was not for one of the target areas that you selected and you want to get a refund from Google. It's basically a refund request. So what we're looking at here is the full list of reasons that Google will accept a dispute request. So the first one, the call was for something that you just don't do. So example, you are advertising as a personal injury lawyer, but you get a call from someone about a DUI, that would qualify as a job not served. If the call is from outside your target location, if the call is a wrong number or a sales call, spam or bot call, these are pretty self-explanatory. If you get a duplicate lead, someone keeps calling your tracking number attached to your LSA over and over again. I've definitely seen that happen. You can request a dispute there. Or if the caller is asking for a different business, which I think technically is also wrong number, but they have that as the last option there. Obviously, nobody wants to be wasting money on unqualified leads. So it is really important to stay on top of this. Google, for the most part, uses bots to screen the dispute requests. So if you want your dispute to be approved, you need to make sure, first and foremost, whoever's answering the phone, don't stay on the line talking to the caller for, minutes and minutes on end, having a, full-blown conversation. Really try and keep that call to under 30 seconds whenever possible. If you could figure out pretty quickly, getting the details from the caller if this is going to be something that's viable for you guys or not. So keep it short. If it's not going to turn into something, make sure that they clearly state that, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to help you. Maybe if they can refer them somewhere else, but that's not really necessary. It's just making sure that you make it clear that the firm will not be moving forward with this particular caller. As soon as Google hears that, somebody's going to follow up, oh, I'm going to take down your information and pass it along to an attorney and they'll be in touch. Even if they're calling about something that's totally unrelated to your practice or what you're advertising for, as soon as Google hears that and they think, oh, okay, well, they're going to, take advantage of this and follow up with this person, that's grounds for them to charge you for that particular call. So just some things to keep in mind there. All right, and we have made it to our last section. Just a quick recap on the LSA pointers. Make sure, you keep those verifications up to date, get the verified reviews, make sure you are interacting with the interface, preferably on the app, and keep that responsiveness score up. So from there, we will go ahead and dive into, what things we should avoid when we're dealing with the PPC and or LSA accounts. So first things first here, I know I briefly mentioned this earlier in the presentation, but definitely worth noting again. Anyone running PPC ads, sometimes we get these with the LSA, it's mostly on the PPC side of things, has probably been contacted by a Google rep with some kind of urgent message about fixing problems with your ads. If you did XYZ, your ads would perform exponentially better. You just need to follow our recommendations. Please do not go into panic mode when you get these calls or messages from Google. In our experience here at Justia, these reps, they really like to over exaggerate whatever's going on to try and get you to agree to a meeting with them. And then that turns into a sales pitch to try and get you to, utilize whatever new feature Google's trying to push this month, usually for the benefit of Google, not necessarily your business. So hopefully you're working with a good agency that can help you kind of field these requests, decipher what is actually a problem versus, Google just trying to get you to sign up for the latest thing. You will see all of these recommendations on the recommendations tab of the interface. I talked about this earlier, a couple that, yes, go ahead, take advantage of these. But there definitely are some where, you really want to think before you move forward. Take this one in the center that we're looking at here for basically they're suggesting that you add broad match variations of all of your existing keywords. Do we really want to do that? Do we really want to enable broad match keywords for your entire campaign and open yourself up to having your ad trigger for a search like can't afford a lawyer for my divorce, or even just the word lawyer when your target is trying to get someone who's looking for a divorce lawyer? Probably not. Those are very irrelevant, either off topic, just the word lawyer, very vague. And these are actual examples that I pulled from accounts that were using broad match keywords. So it's really, not what you want to be wasting your ad spend on. But when you do this, it does mean that generally your volume goes up and there's more money in Google's pocket because all of a sudden you're opened up to this much, much wider variety of different keywords that are available to trigger your ads. So, of course, from Google's end, this is great. Enable broad match, do that. But for you, realistically, and your firm, probably not, the thing that you want to do. Another example here that we see a lot is setting a target CPA or cost per acquisition. Basically, another way of saying that you don't want Google to spend more than X amount on any given conversion that's coming from your campaign. So this might sound intriguing to some of you, especially if, your conversion costs are on the high end, but you have to really think about what that means. If Google is going to constrain your ads to meet a lower price point, that means they're going to start favoring your ads to show for lower price searches. And lower price searches usually means lower quality. So yes, you might be saving a little bit of money on that conversion, but if the overall conversion quality takes a dive, is that really going to help your firm? It's just something to think about. Sometimes, situations are different and you have to do what's best for you. But the point is don't blindly follow anything that's showing up here. I'm going to look here. I wanted to talk about performance max specifically because I know I skipped that. That was the first little recommendation on the previous slide. I want to talk about it in a little bit more detail because Google has been pushing this pretty hard lately. Advertising basically that these campaigns have the ability to find more converting customers across all of Google's channels. They make it sound really great. But what you don't realize until you dive a bit deeper is that you're putting Google in full control. You don't get to choose the channels where your ads are being served. You don't get access to any audience data that can, kind of help inform decisions related to your ad performance. You also don't get access to any keyword data. So, in my opinion, having, worked with ads for a long time, these are like crucial elements that really help you make informed decisions about what you're doing. And Google's taking all that away. So again, I just like really pushing this point. At the end of the day, use common sense, make decisions based off of what will actually benefit your business, and what's good for your firm, not necessarily what is good for Google. The next thing that I want to talk about on, what not to do is setting up your LSA and then doing nothing with it. I know I talked about this. You go through the hassle of getting these ads all set up. You have to jump through the hoops of passing the background check and doing the verifications and all of that. And then after the fact, for you to not log into the interface after and expect that you're going to see great results is not entirely realistic. So, you may get away with it for a little while, but if you really want to maximize the performance of your ads and, also avoid paying for bogus leads, you need to be actively on there, whether it's using the app or using the desktop interface, hopefully the app, but, no matter what, be on there, monitor what's going on. Another thing to really look out for with the LSAs, and it's kind of a fine line because, obviously you don't want to pay for leads that are not qualified, be wasting money with, bad calls, spam calls, whatever the case may be. But you also need to be reasonable with your expectations and not go crazy with disputing every little thing that comes through that isn't, the perfect case. So, overdoing it with the disputes, it can be a negative signal to Google and cause your lead volume to drop. So just make sure you keep that in mind when you're going through your leads. Maybe the call in question, it wasn't great quality. Give an example, like you're advertising for car accidents in the personal injury vertical. And this potential client calls in, it's a minor accident. There's no real injuries. It's not something that, you're going to take as a case, that after you talk to them, what have you. But since technically this was a call related to a car accident, you might be better off just letting it slide versus, being overzealous with the disputes. You really have to handle it by, in a case-by-case basis, use your best judgment. But at the end of the day, you just don't want to go too crazy with the disputes to the point where Google decreases your overall volume because of it. Once you get into that mode where Google has kind of starts to limit the calls that are coming through your ads, it's really hard to kind of dig yourself back out of that. And the final kind of no-go for the day that I wanted to discuss is about the actual setup of your PPC and LSA accounts. So technically, Google will allow you to set up both types of ads on the same CID. Do not do this if you can help it. Not only does it make things a bit confusing when you have two totally different ads running in the same account, it also, the bigger thing is that it poses an issue when your ads are connected like that. Say if you have, some kind of policy violation on the PPC side of things, and it causes your ads to be suspended, even if it's just temporary, that's going to affect your LSAs as well. So, keeping things separated means that, it's just a little bit more organized, easy to keep track of everything. But it also means in those situations that you're not going to have one ads account impacting the other in that way. All right. So, with that, we have come to the conclusion of our presentation. Thank you so much for joining in. I really hope you were able to take away some valuable information and, you can turn around and use that for your own firm's marketing and, really got something positive here. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Awesome. Thank you, Samantha, for that presentation. We can now move on to audience questions. So Samantha's here with us live. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask her based on today's presentation, please feel free to submit them through that Q&A button in the control panel at the bottom of your screen. It looks like we've already got a few, so we can go ahead and jump right in. All right, our first question is, if I can only choose one, which do you recommend, PPC or LSAs?
Oh, great question. So it's really going to depend on, a few different things. Generally speaking, with no, background information, no insight of what you do and your firm and your goals and all that kind of stuff. PPC, you have a lot more control over, what you're able to accomplish there. So I generally tend to lean towards doing PPC ads. I like that you can pick your, demographic specific keywords. With the LSAs, you're given this predetermined list from Google of what you're able to target, and you're kind of limited to that. So I do like PPC better if you have to choose between the two. Just make sure if you are, we're going to dive in, we're going to do PPC ads, running them with not enough budget is also a little counterproductive. So if your budget's on the lower end, LSA might be a better fit. But if we're, really going for it and you want to really get something out of your ads, I would say, healthy budget, go with the PPC side of things.
Awesome. Thanks for that additional insight, Sam. Our next question is, I already have my PPC and LSA on the same CID or customer ID. What should I do?
Yes. Okay. So unfortunately, there isn't a way to separate the two. So if you already have it set up like that, that's the way that it's set up. But for the sake of separating things, like I talked about, if you have an issue with your PPC and you don't want that to impact your LSA or vice versa, it's pretty simple to copy and paste your PPC campaigns into a new account. So if you want to separate things, what I would recommend doing is pause your PPC that's on the same account as your LSAs, and then go ahead and copy over your PPC campaign into a new account. That it's super quick and easy within the interface. Google makes it really easy for you to do that. And then you don't have to worry about redoing all of your LSA verifications. So, all of the, business verification, your background check, all that, you don't have to worry about having to redo it. And then the PPC is easy to copy and paste over. So that's the way that I would handle it if you're in that particular situation.
Awesome. Thanks, Sam. We have time for a couple more questions. Our next one is, you mentioned not overdoing disputing calls. What if all my calls are bad? Do I need to pay for some to keep getting more calls?
Okay. I mean, that's a great question. It's a little bit tricky, like I said, because you really do need to, use your best judgment. If the calls are like egregiously bad, yes, absolutely, do the disputes. The beauty of the LSA is that a lot of the times, especially if you get like a spam call or it's from a bot or something like that, Google will actually pick up on that before you even have the chance to do a dispute. So you'll see on the actual lead, it'll say that it's not charged. So you don't have to bother with disputing those. And hopefully that kind of alleviates the need to go really overboard with the disputes. What I meant by that is more like, the call could go either way. It's kind of a gray area, probably won't turn into anything, but you want your money back. That's where you're like, okay, maybe we should, dial it back a little and let that go and have it go towards your responsiveness score, keep the volume of calls coming because, you get in this position where you start disputing all the calls all the time and Google's just saying, okay, they're not into this, they're not getting it, we're not going to send more calls their way. And once you get to that place, it's really hard to get out of it. So, you want to keep the volume going as much as possible. So really bad, obviously dispute. Hopefully Google catches most of them, but you got to it's a judgment call at the end of the day.
And then our final question for today is going to be, how does the targeting and audience reach differ from PPC to LSAs?
Okay, so this, I kind of touched on this earlier. The PPC, you get so much more control over all aspects of your targeting. That is where, you can go in and pick, obviously with the LSA, you both can pick the specific locations you want to target, but with PPC, you get specific keywords, you get demographic targeting, you get device targeting, the different networks that your ads are running on. So there's a lot more opportunity there for you to pick and choose the audience that your ads are being shown to. Whereas with the LSAs, like I said, you're stuck, whatever practice area you have opted in for, Google gives you a preset list of sub areas that you can either, opt in or out of, and you're kind of stuck with that. So, my favorite is on personal injury. You're a personal injury lawyer, you're running the LSAs, you're picking through, the list of areas. And one of those is pain and suffering. Like who let Google pick pain and suffering to be a practice area that you're, targeting your ads for? I don't know what that means. I don't know how Google would interpret that, any, particular search and say, oh, this qualifies as pain and suffering, and I'm gonna, show the ad here. So, with PPC, you don't have to worry about that as much. LSA, you're kind of putting a little bit more in Google's hands. So that's the main difference between the two.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your additional insight, Sam, and thank you all for your questions. We want to thank you all for joining us for another Justia webinar. As I mentioned today at the top of the presentation, as we just heard from Samantha about some great tips for Google advertising, we wanted to remind you all of the Google advertising services that we offer here at Justia for both PPC and LSAs, Justia Amplify. So Justia Amplify offers a portfolio of digital advertising management services that's designed specifically for law firms to help improve your return on investment and get you additional leads across various channels. We offer management services for PPC, LSAs, and more, and our marketing professionals will work with you to develop advertising strategies with your firm's goals in mind, as well as ones that work within your budget. So if you are interested, you can visit us at amplify.justia.com. There's also a clickable link for that if you would like to see it in the Q&A button. I answered a couple questions there with that link, so feel free to refer to that as well. Thank you so much again for joining, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did enjoy it, please click the like button and subscribe to our channel for more videos on law practice and legal marketing. See you in our next video.